The mower roars before Malik can reach the latch. Metal rattles. The side gate shudders, then swings wide as if his fence were a suggestion. A man in a neon vest shoulders through, eyes fixed on the quickest line across the grass. Wet clippings spit in a green mist, sticking to Malik's shins. Dana's voice cracks sharp from the patio. Their toddler, Zion, freezes by the sandbox, fingers deep in damp sand, eyes wide. The landscaper lifts the mower to hop the flower bed. The blade howls. The air smells like gasoline, sweet and raw. Malik steps in front, palms up, heart banging in his throat. He says no. He says stop. The man leans, points to the ground without cutting the throttle. Easement, he yells over the noise like the word is a key to any door. Another worker slips through the open gate behind him, a backpack blower whining. A neighbor in a sunscreen hat strolls by the fence, not looking, then looking too long. Zion's red shovel skitters under the mower's path as the landscaper jerks the machine around. Dana scoops Zion up, almost drops him, clutches tighter. Malik feels his molars ache from the pressure he's putting into his jaw. The mower loses traction on the damp grass, swerves toward the patio step, catches and shudders. The worker smirks, taps his ear like he can't hear. "Community shortcut," he mouths. Another neighbor's window lifts with a squeak. Phones appear. Malik tastes copper. He rests the gate closed behind the second man, but the chain dangles and won't catch. The blade coughs, then revs higher. Zion's chest hiccups with a sob. The mower lunges again, and the man angles it toward the opposite fence as if carving a permanent path. A bright yellow warning sign on the gate, "Bought for the dog they don't have," flaps against the wood. Malik feels it then, the line crossing. He steps closer into the heat of the engine. The worker's grin twitches. Then the mower's deck bumps the sandbox wall and Zion's red shovel pops under the spinning blade with a chop of plastic that sounds too much like bone. The meeting room in the clubhouse is too bright, fluorescent lights flattening faces into a low gloss sheen. Folding chairs scrape. The HOA president sits at the head table with a stack of papers and a gavel she never uses, fingers steepled as if she's pressing reverence into the air. Malik stands in the aisle, clutching a printed photo of the open gate, the mower track gouging across his yard like a scar. Dana holds Zion close, the boy heavy with post-nap warmth, cheeks blotched. Whispers leak like steam around them. They knew about the easement when they bought. It's just grass. Everyone uses that cut through. The president's mouth shapes patience without ever touching empathy. As stated in the covenants, she says, lifting a page she doesn't read from. The community retains the right of access for maintenance and safety, which includes the shortest route to common areas. Her tone is air-conditioned. A man 2 rows back raises his voice without raising his hand. We've always walked there. My dog hates the long way. The landscaper's supervisor sits with arms folded, logo bright on his polo, offering up a practiced half-frown that says both I'm listening and this is nothing. Malik speaks with the tightness of someone building a bridge plank by plank, even as the river rises. There is no recorded easement across our fence line, he says. And the gate is on our lock. The president gives him the smile reserved for children and complaints. We all share this space, she replies. Community spirit is a two-way street. Malik feels the room tilt against him, a subtle shifting of chairs, chin angles, and sympathetic eyes that never quite meet his. He notices how the board members sit higher than the rest, literal inches of power. He notices the way the supervisor's thumb strokes his bicep, casual claim staked on muscle alone. The president concludes with a sigh that floats above the room like a verdict. Please let our vendors do their jobs. When Malik turns to leave, someone mutters, "He's making a scene." The word scene hangs like a sticky cobweb. On the way out, the landscaper supervisor leans in just close enough for Malik to smell the mint on his breath and says, without moving his lips, "We'll be back Tuesday." Malik feels the photo crumple in his fist. At home, the yard looks like a surgical site, the grass sutured by muddy footsteps. Malik kneels by the gate and fingers the latch, the metal cold and familiar. On the patio table lies a worn leather folio that used to smell like the courtroom when he shadowed his father, a mason who read contracts as carefully as he laid stone. Inside, there is a folded plat with a crease down the middle where Malik keeps smoothing it, a habit and a promise. He touches the embossed seal with his thumb and thinks of pressure making impressions that last. His phone buzzes and skitters across the table. A voicemail from Clara at the county recorder's office sits there, the preview line a thin thread of gold. "Call me back. I have your instrument number." He doesn't press play, not yet. Dana brings him a mug and sets it beside the folio, eyes flicking to the plat, then to his face. "They're not going to listen," she says softly, not a question, just whether. He slides a brass measuring tape from his pocket, the one his father used to let him snap back when he was 8, the metal tongue flashing like a sly smile. He pulls it to the fence post. 32 feet to the next corner, same as the plat shows. Zion totters out with his red shovel, now ragged at the edge, refusal sharpened into plastic. Malik takes the shovel and turns it over in his hands, small, bright, and dented, the kind of thing that looks like nothing until it isn't. Dana watches the street, where neighbors cut across the side strip like water finding the lowest point. "We could move," she says, and then immediately shakes her head at herself. "Not yet." He nods toward the folio. "I'll show them," he says, quiet as much to himself as to her. The measuring tape recoils with a satisfying snap and disappears into its case, coiled potential. Malik flips the folio open, runs his finger along the line that marks their lot, and pauses at the blank space where an easement would have been. Blank space that means everything. He breathes in, long and measured. He knows the difference between what people say is on paper and what is actually recorded. He knows who checks. Tuesday comes with the muffled thunder of engines. Malik is already at the gate when the first vest pops into view. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. He holds up a laminated copy of the plat, the seal bright in the morning. "This line," he says, tapping the edge where fence meets lot, "is the boundary of our privately owned property. No easement is recorded here or anywhere across this yard." The worker shrugs, looks past him to the shortcut baked into habit. "Supervisor says we go through." Malik clicks his phone camera on, steady red dot blinking. "Say that again," he asks, calm like the surface of a deep pond. The man repeats it, gaze flicking uneasily to the lens. Malik steps aside just enough to let the frame catch the posted sign he mounted last night, "Private property." No access. He measured the height so the board couldn't claim it blocked sight lines. He printed the symbol from the covenants, the same font they used for pool rules. It looks official because it is. The supervisor arrives a minute later, hands out, palms up. "Let's not make this difficult," he says, the kind of sentence that makes difficulty a choice only you are making. Malik asks for the work order. The man blinks. "We don't need to show you that." Malik tilts his head like he's hearing music in another room. "Then you won't mind if I call your office to confirm the scope excludes trespass." A pause, not long but long enough to count as a crack. The supervisor's mouth tightens. "Do what you need to do." Malik takes the moment and wedges it open. He texts the community manager and CCs the board, attaches a 3-second video of the supervisor asserting access, and adds a single line. Please provide the recorded instrument number authorizing entry. He breathes. He lets silence work. He lets the camera see. Dana from the patio gives him a look that is both worry and pride. Zion presses his face to the glass and fogs a circle. The workers back away from the gate enough to dial their supervisor's supervisor. A small win. Not a victory, but a pivot point. Malik feels the folios weight under his arm like a quiet heartbeat. He doesn't press. He waits. Sometimes you win by staying exactly where you're supposed to be. The email arrives that afternoon with the subject line written like it's a kindness, friendly reminder, vendor access and community spirit. The community manager writes that long-standing practice constitutes implied permission. She adds that obstructing vendors may result in fines. Malik reads it twice, slow, choosing the calmest part of his mind to occupy. He replies with the plat attached again, along with a 32-second clip of a worker stepping over his property stake like it's a decorative twig. He asks, once more, for the recorded instrument number, and cites the covenants section that requires such instruments to be referenced by number in the association records. No argument, just gravity. The next day a notice arrives in bright paper: violation, interfering with community services. A fine set to post at month's end. Dana presses her lips together and smiles without mirth. "They're daring you," she says. He nods. He files a request with the county to confirm recorded easements and sends a formal letter to the vendor requesting they avoid private property pending verification. He also emails their insurance carrier, attaching the near-miss clip of the red shovel stuttering under the mower's deck, worded in the non-accusatory cadence of someone who understands claim thresholds. The vendor's supervisor shows up again, swagger simmered down into a kind of bored menace. "If you block us again," he says softly, "I'll call the police." Malik nods, empathy almost genuine. "If you trespass again," he replies, "I will too." The next afternoon the heat sits heavy on the street. A crew member swings the gate open without knocking. Zion has slipped Dana's grasp and toddles toward the noise, red shovel upright like a flag. The mower coughs, then revs. The worker doesn't see him. The blade spins a frequency that makes Malik's ribs vibrate. Dana screams a sound that does not belong to words. Malik moves. Everything slows, like syrup finding the rim of a spoon. He vaults the patio step, grabs the mower handle, and yanks the kill switch with a force that shocks him at how easily the world can go quiet. The engine chokes and dies. Zion wails. The worker stumbles back, hands raised, eyes suddenly, actually seeing. There is a silence shaped like a cliff's edge, and below it, the ocean of what could have just happened. The next HOA meeting is standing room only. Word has traveled the way outrage does when it's attached to a child's cry and a lawnmower's scream. The board looks ruffled but decorous. The president smoothing papers she doesn't need to touch. Malik stands at the front this time. He places the leather folio on the table and opens it with the care of setting a cornerstone. He lays the plat down, the embossed seal catching fluorescent light, and beside it, he lays a printed email from Clara at the recorder's office affirming no easement is recorded against Lot 47. He speaks without hurry. 3 facts, he says, voice steady. First, there is no recorded easement across our yard. Here is the instrument search result and the recorder's confirmation. Second, the covenants require any easement relied on by the association to be recorded and referenced by number. You have not provided one. Third, on Thursday, a vendor you hired nearly mowed down my child inside our fence. He lets the words settle. He does not fill the air. He does not apologize for forcing them to listen. The landscaper supervisor shifts in his seat, but Malik lifts a hand and keeps going. I work in risk, he says finally, the sentence soft but heavy, a stone into still water. I analyze contracts and claims for a living. I know what happens to boards and vendors when injuries collide with absent instruments and recorded footage. He slides a tablet across the table. Screen paused on the video of Zion running and the mower rolling, the blade a spinning oath of negligence. I didn't want to bring this here, he adds, and it's true. But I'm not walking my son around a shortcut everyone decided existed because it was easier. The president's practiced smile falters for the first time. We have always, she begins, but Malik's calm is a scalpel. You've always done it wrong, he says, not unkind. There is a recorded pedestrian easement to the north of the block that was never built. You can fund a path along it, outside private fences, or you can explain to your insurer why you chose not to. He gestures to the speakerphone center on the table. Clara from the recorder's office is on the line if anyone wants to read the index out loud. The room shifts, a visible scoot away from liability. The supervisor clears his throat. We train our crews, he starts, but Malik lifts the red shovel, the edge ragged, sets it gently on the table like a witness. Train them again, he says. Then put it in your contracts with fines for trespass and make the path where it belongs. The president looks at the plat, at the shovel, at the faces turned toward her. When she speaks, it is not to him, but to the recorder capturing the minutes. Motion to propose funding a proper path along the recorded easement and to revise vendor contracts to include trespass penalties, she says, the words one by one, as if building something real. The gavel finally meets wood. It sounds like a door closing on a bad habit. The next week blooms with headlines in small fonts and bigger conversations. A local parenting group posts the clip of the mower and the red shovel on a loop that makes hearts kick and throats tighten. A neighborhood blog writes about recorded versus assumed rights like they've been waiting all year for the chance to use the word instrument in a sentence. The board blasts an email titled Safety First that reads like apology in committee form. They vote funds to pour a crushed granite path along the north side where the original easement runs, and they schedule a community day to plant native grasses along the edge. The vendor posts a public commitment to retrain crews on property lines and easement law, complete with a photo of workers in reflective vests listening to a trainer by a whiteboard where the word consent is underlined twice. Contracts are amended, and the new clauses click into place with satisfying precision. Fines for any entry onto private property without permission. A ladder of penalties that escalates from a warning to termination. A requirement to show recording numbers if access is claimed. The community manager sends Dana a personal note that is almost human. She reads it aloud on the patio, the same place where the engine roared too close, and the air feels different when it's not carrying the vibration of harm. Neighbors drift by the new path in progress, stepping where the gravel will settle, watching crews install low lights that glow like resolve. A city council member retweets the story and muses about learning to unlearn shortcuts that step on someone else's home. Malik fields calls from two other HOA who want to know how to fix what they only just realized was broken. He answers with the patience of someone who knows that change travels slower than a rumor and faster than a child can run. Through it all, Zion drags his red shovel along the edge of the patio, making a quiet groove where grass won't grow. Malik doesn't stop him. Some lines are worth marking. The path opens 2 Saturdays later with lemonade cups sweating on folding tables and a ribbon that looks more ceremonial than necessary. People walk it like they're trying on a better version of themselves. The board president thanks everyone. She doesn't meet Malik's eyes for long, but she does nod at Dana, and Dana nods back. A small treaty signed in the space between apologies and accountability. The vendor supervisor stands with his crew, each of them clutching a training certificate like evidence that the future can be taught. A new sign is posted at the start of the path, the font familiar, the wording right. No access through private yards. Please use community path. It is not radical. It is respect in a sentence. Malik watches as Zion points at the low lights and calls them stars. Malik feels the old anger stand up inside him, stretch, and then sit back down, not gone, but quieter. He runs his finger along the plat one last time that night, then slides it back into the folio. He sets the red shovel on the patio table as if to say, "We remember." Later, when the house is quiet and the neighborhood glows with the new path's soft line, Malik steps outside and listens to the shape silence makes when it isn't bracing for interruption. He thinks of his father's hands pressing stone into mortar, the patience, the insistence on level. He thinks of how easily people call something a shortcut when it is really a trespass. How systems harden around convenience until someone presses a finger to the record and asks for the number. He looks at the fence and doesn't feel like he's standing guard anymore. He feels like a neighbor again. He picks up the brass measuring tape, pulls it, lets it sing its sibilant note, then snaps it back, the sound clean and final. His last thought before he goes inside is simple and sharp as new gravel underfoot. There was never a shortcut, only a boundary finally honored. Real community begins where convenience ends and consent is respected. Send this to a friend who needs to hear this story.